I'm meteorologist Ryan Hanrahan. Want to update you on the storm that we've got coming up the coast. Looks like a pretty sizable nor'easter, and the news this afternoon here on Friday is better for some areas, especially in southern New England. It looks like the storm's going to be a little bit weaker, a little bit farther south. But areas in the mid-Atlantic, especially along the Jersey Shore, down through portions of Delaware, could be a really significant storm with some pretty serious coastal flooding. So the news is a little bit mixed this afternoon. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. We're going to keep you posted on the storm and other storms like this as we head through the fall and through the winter. And if you got any comments, just drop them below, and I'd be happy to answer as many as I can. So let's talk about the storm that we've got on the way. Things are quiet today. Things are quiet tomorrow. No weather issues at all through Saturday, although it will get a little cloudy on Saturday. Here's the setup this afternoon. We've got a big area of high pressure in control across southern New England. That's why it was so cold this morning. Temperatures made it down to the 20s in a lot of outlying areas. But we do have this area of disturbed weather near Florida. This area of disturbed weather is sort of lurking here with some heavy rain and is not really doing a whole lot right now. It's not really moving north much, but that's going to change, and I'll show you why in a little bit. But let me show you the progression here as we go through time later on this evening, into the overnight, through Saturday morning. Then as we head toward Saturday night, notice the storm is lifting to the north, and the storm is emerging off the coast of the Outer Banks, and then by Sunday morning, it's getting close to Cape Hatteras, and by Monday morning, it's turning into a pretty powerful storm off the coast of New Jersey. What's sort of interesting about this system, and it's not that unusual, but the pressure of the storm itself is not particularly low. It's only about 1,000 millibars or so. But why we're concerned about the wind and the coastal flooding is because the high to the north over Maine and New Brunswick is pretty strong. And so it's the difference in pressure between the high to the north, which is just locked in place, and the low to the south. It creates a pretty strong pressure gradient. And that's why we're looking at the potential for damaging winds and that storm surge flooding. But there have been some changes. So let me talk about those changes right now. I want to show you, this is a brand new computer model that just came out. This is the GFS computer model. Watch the storm come to the north. By Sunday afternoon, it's raining pretty hard across New Jersey, starting to rain in southern New England, and then the storm just sort of lurks off the coast near the Virginia Tidewater. Doesn't get farther north, stays a little bit weaker, and that does a couple things. One, it keeps the strongest winds down toward the Jersey Shore, doesn't really get the strongest winds into southern New England, but that creates a bigger issue for the mid-Atlantic. So that's one computer model scenario. Now, why is this happening? Why are we getting the storm in the first place? Well, we've got one upper level disturbance across the southeast. This is right now. And we've got this really strong but compact little jet stream disturbance moving through the Great Lakes. And the two of these are going to interact by the weekend, and they sort of merge into one. They phase together, and when you get that phase, that's typically when we get our strongest storms. That's how we get most of our nor'easters. You get that phase between the southern stream and the northern stream of the jet stream. They come together, and you get a stronger storm that forms. So that's what we're going to see, and that's why this storm is going to take shape. The question is, how quickly does that phase happen? Where exactly does that phase happen? And that is sort of what we're trying to figure out right now, and that will play a big difference in terms of the strength of the storm and the location of the storm, and that, of course, matters for the impacts. So let's talk about wind, because wind is going to be the driving factor here that will create problems. Power outages for one, and storm surge flooding for a second concern here because of the wind piling the water up against the beaches. So what I have plotted here, these are the 925 millibar wind speed. And so what we're doing, we're looking about 2,500 feet above our heads. So we're looking up in the clouds and looking at the wind there. So above the friction layer, trying to see what's going on. And this is a pretty good proxy for I would say, a worst case scenario wind, because a lot of those winds are going to be able to mix down to the ground, especially at the coast, and particularly for coastal Long Island and New Jersey and Delaware, because the water's pretty warm, and that warm water will actually keep the temperatures along the shoreline a little bit warmer. The wind will be blowing off those warmer waters, and so that should help mix those stronger winds down to the ground. So as we take a look at the storm as it moves to the north, and you got that high to the north, the storm over the Carolinas, and that pressure gradient creates this really strong low-level jet stream. And see the browns here? The brown is winds over 58 miles per hour, and the yellow excuse me, the beige or the white, that's when we've got winds 70, 75 miles per hour. And so this low-level jet really is focused here on coastal Long Island, New Jersey, and Delaware, and it doesn't really make its way into southern New England. Sort of weakens by Monday as it moves to the north. But as we go back in time here, this is Sunday, and this is definitely problematic. That's a lot of wind, and you're looking at the potential for wind gusts on the Jersey Shore, 60 to 70, maybe even a little bit higher than that. Especially right at the coast because of that moderating or warming influence from the Atlantic Ocean, which is still in the mid and upper 60s. So this is a bit of a change. It's a little bit farther south. It's also a little bit weaker. So we're talking about potentially a little less wind in New England and a little bit more wind down from the Jersey Shore into Delaware. So that's one computer model projection. Here's another. This is the European computer model. Notice you get that strong jet to develop. But this brings it a little bit more into southern New England and a little bit less along the Jersey Shore. It's also a little bit later. I'll go back to Sunday. This is Sunday evening, and you can see that worst of the wind is still pretty far to the south. So we still have some questions as to where the thing's tracking and how far north it gets. But this would be a more significant wind event on Monday in southern New England. Maybe a little bit less down at the Jersey Shore. So that's one scenario, and I'm going to show you the Euro AI model, and that also brings that strongest wind on Monday into southern New England, but never really gets that strongest wind into New Jersey. So, still we're, 2 days out, and we still have some questions as to what's going on, with the timing and with the location of that strongest wind. By this afternoon, we should get a few more computer model runs in that should help us a little bit. So to fine-tune things. So let's take a look at the coastal flooding aspect of this, and I'm going to start in southern New England. I'm going to start in Bridgeport here and take a look at what we're thinking. This is the Weather Service forecast, and the blue line here is the tides that have been observed, and the purple is the forecast tide. And notice you get high tide and low tide. You get that every 6 hours, right? And as we head toward the weekend, as we head toward Sunday afternoon, getting the tide up around 10 feet in Bridgeport, which is close to moderate flooding. So that would create some issues, and then about 10 feet again for the Monday morning high tide in Bridgeport. But let's take a look farther. So this would be a minor to moderate coastal flooding on Long Island Sound, and it's pretty similar out across the Cape. Let's take a look at Situate here. Pull this up, and you get minor coastal flooding through, let's come down here. There you go. Minor coastal flooding for eastern Massachusetts. And let's go down to the Jersey Shore, because this is where things get much more interesting. I'm going to show you, let's go to Atlantic City. Take a look here. So that high tide on Sunday afternoon, that's major coastal flooding. So definitely a more significant flood event there on the Jersey Shore because of those winds. Look at Cape May, same deal. Getting actually fairly close to the record, which is 9.4 feet, getting up to 8.8 feet. So let me scroll down here so you can see it. There you go. So that's Cape May. So the farther south, that high tide looks a little more significant on Sunday afternoon. So that's where I think the highest potential is for a more significant coastal flood event. The farther north you get, minor to moderate. The farther south you get into New Jersey and Delaware, moderate to major. And the Weather Service this morning, Mount Holly, was saying that there could be evacuations on the Jersey Shore. Has potentially be the most significant coastal flood event since Sandy back in 2012. It's not going to be that bad. The waves are not going to be nearly as significant as they were during Sandy. The tide levels won't be as high, but it's going to create some issues for the some of the beaches, the barrier islands off the Jersey Shore. So something to be mindful of there. In terms of rainfall, it's another issue with this storm. The rainfall amounts don't look as significant. Actually, don't look significant enough, I should say, to cause inland flooding. It's been pretty dry lately, so it would take the rivers are low. It would take a lot of rain to cause some issues. And this is the GFS ensembles. Looks like a pretty widespread, 1 to 2 inch kind of deal, maybe a bit more in a few spots. This is the Canadian, which still has more in southeastern New England, up getting close to 4 inches, but the Canadian still keeps that storm sort of lurking around for a couple days, keeps it into the middle of next week. So sort of a different kind of evolution there. But, more significant rain event, but not enough to cause major flooding issues. And then the European ensembles here, or not. Oh, there we go. You got 1 to 2 inches across most of southern New England down into the mid-Atlantic. But again, not enough to cause major flooding issues. Even if we had, say, 4 inches of rain, I don't think that would be enough to cause significant flooding inland because, again, it's been so dry lately, and the rain should be pretty spread out over a decent duration. So, again, bottom line here, I think the wind potential for southern New England and the coastal flood potential for southern New England, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Mass, has come down a little bit. Say peak winds at the coast, maybe 45 to 55. Down at the Jersey Shore, there's the potential for a more significant event, and the whole thing has trended a little bit later. So we're looking more at the rain was going to begin early enough on Sunday, but the stronger wind may hold off until late Sunday night and Monday. So maybe Monday that's more problematic for southern New England. The Jersey Shore, it looks like that high tide on Sunday afternoon is going to be the worst. So we'll keep you posted on the storm all updates this weekend, of course. Make sure you subscribe to this page, and we'll keep you updated with any of these storms and give you a behind-the-scenes look at some of the computer guidance and some of our thinking behind the forecast. So thanks so much for watching. Have a great weekend, and stay safe as that storm moves in on Sunday.